Ah yes, The Legend of Zelda. One of the most popular and beloved video game franchises of all time. This is personally one of my favorite video game franchises I have ever played. I even collected Legend of Zelda memorabilia. I have some of the Legend of Zelda amiibo, the Ocarina of Time soundtrack I found on eBay for about $13, an unofficial guide, and 6 manga based on said series, which I totally recommend checking out. And of course, I have some of the games, including what I consider hands down the best game of all time, Ocarina of Time, and the latest release, Breath of the Wild. But in today's video, I'm not going to cover anything on the series itself. No, what I'm actually going to cover is, guessed it, Master Sword. Well, okay, maybe not that Master Sword. No, that would be way too broad. Not to mention a vast majority of people who have played the games already know about the sword. No, what I'm actually talking about is a band called Master Sword. This isn't just any type of band. This is a heavy metal band. I have to say, what an interesting transition. First I talk about metal music, then I decided to change it up a bit and start talking about video games, and then we're back here talking about metal again. Except this time, I blend heavy metal and video games in one video. This video will be split into 2 parts. In this one I will talk about information about the band as well as their early releases prior to their debut album Shadow and Steel, which I will talk about in the next part. Master Sword was formed in 2013 in Washington DC as a cover band that blends the music from Legend of Zelda and progressive metal. Now there are many videos on YouTube that feature metal covers of fan favorites like Windmill Hut from Ocarina of Time. You may know that song as the Song of Storms. But what sets this band apart from the others is that they include lyrics in these songs, which to me brings a new perspective into the music. They also rename song titles while staying true to the original music. Speaking of which, the earliest release I could find from this band is a remix of Hyrule Castle titled In the Court of the Hyrulean King, which was released in 2013 on the band's YouTube page. And it's an interesting take on the Hyrule Castle theme. The song has like a dark vibe within, but it still feels like the original counterpart. And according to the description of this video, following this cover is a bit of additional music made by the band. It's not one of my favorites of this band, but I dig it. It's definitely worth checking out. If you want to check out the demo, click the link in the description down below, or just click up here. Alright, next is their 2015 EP called Epic. It has 4 tracks and it's a lot heavier than the previous track that I talked about, evolving the band's sound to a mix of progressive and power metal. It starts off with a cover of Tall Tall Heights from Link's Awakening, titled The Mountain, One Last Fight. Now, I haven't heard the original counterparts, and there's going to be more songs that I won't be able to recognize, so please don't get upset. After listening to the demo and then hearing the first track of the EP, I have to say that the latter is an improvement. There's double kicking, the guitars are a lot heavier, and the vocals aren't bad. I really dig this track. Although I really dig the track, it's not as good as the rest. Which brings me to the next track, which is possibly one of my favorite covers that this band made, which is a cover of one of my favorite songs from Ocarina of Time called Guerrilla Valley. Titled The Forsaken Tribe, this is actually one of my favorite covers that this band made. The cover stays true to the original, and it even has the flamenco influences that can be found in the original counterpart. I really love this rendition. The band really pulled it off with this one. The next track is a cover of 2 tracks from Majora's Mask, the mini-boss and the main boss fight themes. Titled The Terrible Fate, this is another great rendition made from this band, although I haven't played Majora's Mask yet. Aside from being obviously dark, it is a nice and heavy track to listen to. The final track is probably one of my most favorite covers of all the tracks that Master Sword has ever put out. It was the first Master Sword song that I have ever listened to, and I really love this track. It is a cover of the intro music from Wind Waker, and the reason why I enjoyed this track very much is because it starts off with a mellow sound, accompanied by acoustic guitars and guest vocals Goddess Choir. And in the middle of the track there's the familiar Legend of Zelda theme that has been in the series since the very first Legend of Zelda game. It is just perfect, excellent work. Overall, I think this is a really good EP, and I would recommend buying it if you want to get a taste of what the band would become in future releases. The following releases since then were 3 singles. I'll only talk about one of these singles because the other 2 appear in their debut album, which I will talk about again in the second part. Released in 2016, titled Behind the Mirror, it is a rendition of the Dark World theme from A Link to the Past. This track features guest vocalist Rob Bradley, who also performed in one of the tracks in their EP. Just like their previous work, this is just as heavy. However, this is a different track from what they released before. This is original work. Although I do notice that there is some of original composer Koji Kondo's music in the beginning of this track. It is a very interesting track, and although it's not exactly a knockout of the park, it is a strong track by Master Sword. As mentioned before, I won't be talking about the other two singles because they, again, appeared in Shadow and Steel, even though they were released before their debut album's release. In the second part, I will cover the aforementioned debut album and give my verdict for both the album and band overall. Stay tuned.